Hello, thank you for joining today's video. My name is Michael Cahill. I am from the class of 2015 and currently the chair of the Class Leadership Committee of the Stevens Alumni Association, or the SAA. In today's presentation, we are going to discuss the SAA class officers. If you're viewing this presentation, it's likely because you are interested or curious in learning more about the class officer positions, and you may be entering an election year. And I hope that from this video, you learn about the purpose of the class officer program, how it fits into the SAA, understand the expectations, roles, and responsibilities of our officers, as well as some recommended aims and tasks for those volunteers to achieve, and to also understand the resources available to class officers so they may accomplish their goals. I'll say here that this year we have a new structure to the Alumni Association, and with that we have a new structure to this committee, and we've identified a number of opportunities for improving the class officer program, as well as a number of other aspects of the Alumni Association. And so one thing I will say is that if you've served as class officer in the past, one thing that we are working to do better in the current and coming years is to provide you with more and better resources and support for performing your functions, and some clarity and direction around your role. Hopefully this presentation will give you that sense of direction and clarity. So I wanted to start out with the purpose of the Alumni Association and how the class officer program fits into that. So for the SAA, we start every one of our meetings with the purpose of the organization, which you can see here in front of you on the screen. Essentially, it states that the purpose of the organization is to establish, maintain, and cultivate among its members a sentiment of regard for one another and of attachment to the university, and to promote in every way the interests of the Institute. And so within that organization, there are a number of committees that work to meet that goal. One of them is this committee, the Class Leadership Committee, the purpose of which is to ensure that there's a dedicated leadership team for each undergraduate class, to identify motivated people to volunteer for the class officer positions. And then finally, this committee does work to identify some award recipients, but we won't go much into that. We're going to be focusing on our officers and our leadership teams for our individual classes in this discussion. So at a high level, the role of the class officer is to facilitate class engagement with the SAA and Stevens by and large. Some recommended ways to achieve this goal is to keep your classmates up to speed on goings on at Stevens, such as achievements around meeting aspects of the strategic plan, fundraising, and some updates around university awards and rankings. I think that this is really important because it's not so easy for those who aren't in an alumni or in a volunteering capacity, and those who don't have a name who our alumni recognize, as many people recognize the names of their class officers, right? Those are their peers. This is really helpful because in the event that people glance over an email from the university, or they may not have contact information or the university may not have the most updated contact information, our class officers can really be the bridge to make sure that we're just informing our peers about all the great things that are happening at the university. And through this, we can also cultivate a sense of camaraderie among our classmates. One way we do this is through our alumni magazine, The Indicator. This talks about the goings-on at Stevens, as well as updates about our classmates' lives. This could include recent accolades or awards that our alumni have received, as well as who's having kids, who's getting married, major life milestones. We can include that in our class logs, which can be found at the back of the indicator. Class officers also coordinate and plan reunions alongside the alumni office. The alumni office is a great help in doing this. They are excellent with coordinating the logistics of these events, but it's really important that we engage our alumni and the people from each one of those classes, and usually the class officers are a great point of contact for this, but really those people, those volunteers can help ensure that the reunions are in alignment with and agree with the preferences of or vision of each class year. And then finally, we just want to make sure our classmates are in touch. This could be through having our classmates come back to campus, participating in some kind of webinar, keeping in touch with them on social media, or whatever ways you think as a volunteer are most appropriate for your class. General expectations of the SAA around volunteers, we call this the 3 Ps. We use the 3 Ps to give this a little more clarity. So we talk about pride, participation, and philanthropy. So pride is showing your Stevens spirit. This could be done in a number of different ways, whether it's showing up to or wearing your Stevens gear, sharing things on Facebook or social media, or emailing your classmates, talking about things over coffee or the phone, keeping people up to date about all the great things that are happening at Stevens, participating, whether that's serving in your role as an officer, having people submit content for the class logs and the indicator, which I just discussed, or coming to events on campus, bringing your classmates or your friends to see all of the great things that are happening, especially with all of the construction that's been happening on campus. It's been a really exciting time to see how much things have changed, and really for the better. And then finally, philanthropy, and this kind of speaks for itself, is that we want to make sure that we are supporting the university. We give to this nonprofit organization to ensure that it can, groom the minds of the future in technology and other industries as the scope of studies at Stevens continue to grow. I think, one thing is, it's the last line on here, is understanding and sharing the importance of alumni giving, because alumni giving doesn't only support the university from a financial perspective, it also supports it from a reputational perspective. If you're unaware, the ratings of the university depend not insignificantly on how many alumni give, and that could be gifts as of $5 in value. And for those ratings, those who give $5 versus 5 million are considered on the same plane. So keep that in mind. So with regard to the class officers, specifically for each class, we typically see that every undergraduate alumni class should have 4 class officers. These are our presidents, vice presidents, secretaries, and fund captains. Each position has a 5-year term. The first year of each 5-year term is a milestone reunion year, or a multiple of every 5 years, so a 5, 10, 15-year reunion. So you can have that first year in your term. It's really exciting for staying in touch with your classmates. It also offers you a great opportunity to make your new title known amongst your classmates. And then through teamwork, officers exhibit enthusiasm and commitment. I should note here that we have seen in some cases that our officers, we may not have just 4, we may have people double up in each one of these roles. This can make load balancing and a little bit easier and the lift a little bit lighter. I think this is particularly important as our volunteers move on to different parts of their lives, right? Right after graduation is the beginning of your career. You want to make sure you're focusing on your career while also staying engaged with the university. Later on in life, you may have kids, your career may develop even further, and you may not be able to dedicate as much time. So thinking about ways to manage the expectations here, which are relatively minimal in terms of time, I think is an important thing that I'd like to make you all aware of. There are options here. To go into the specifics for each role, the president typically takes lead in setting class objectives. They work with the alumni office and other class officers to establish regular contacts with classmates. This is typically done via email, but this could be done through mailing or social media, depending on what you think works well or best for your class. And then, as I mentioned before, organizing a reunion committee or working with the alumni office to plan reunions is an important part of being an officer. And so this reunion committee, this group may actually go beyond our class officers, right? We want to make sure we have a good representation of the class when integrating with the alumni office to make sure that the events that we plan kind of are in alignment with, again, the class's vision. And also, if there's any fundraising, we want to make sure that we're considering what our alumni consider to be important. What did they need to know in order to inspire them to be involved in the changes that are going on campus? Next, we have the vice president, whose role is honestly to work with the president to make sure that the objectives set above are appropriately set, are being fulfilled, and then also in the absence of the president to serve as, or in the capacity of the president. Third, we have the secretary, and the secretary's main function is to solicit and submit class news to the class logs of the indicator. There are 3 issues disseminated per year. So the hope would be that each class is showing up at least twice a year. With how many people are in our classes these days, most people, I'm sure, have very exciting things happening in their lives, or at least some people, at least one, a few times a year, is having something exciting happening in their lives. So a few friends of mine got married and engaged over the past year and a half, and those have been showing up in the class logs recently. So keep in mind, what we could share about our classmates there. And then finally, we have the fund captain. Each class has its own scholarship fund. And so hopefully, or the intent of this fund captain is to work with the alumni office to coordinate some fundraising efforts or participate in those. This could be from setting goals, like having a certain percentage of our alumni give to our fund each year, or it could include setting a dollar amount. We want to raise $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 each fiscal year, or over the course of their term of 5 years, right? And it's whatever, again, makes sense for your class. Something I want to reiterate here is that you're not alone as a class officer. In addition to the team who you would be working with, the team of peers you'll be working with, is that the alumni office provides a lot of support. They provide your class rosters, which include contact information for your peers that you can perform outreach. They can also provide updates on Stevens events. There's a weekly alumni email that's disseminated to all alumni saying all the events that are coming up on campus. That's something that you can use as a baseline for sharing with your classmates. Also, each class is a designated alumni office liaison. So if there are questions you may have, like I'd like to have an updated list of contact information for my class, the alumni office liaison assigned to your class should be able to help you with that. And then if you're not sure of where to go, you can always contact the alumni office through the alumni email listed here, alumni@stevens.edu, with any questions or for guidance. And either they can help you themselves, or they may even point you to me in the class leadership committee to help you as well. And that brings me to the next point, that the Alumni Association can help you. I would say your first stop would be the Class Leadership Committee. So our email address is here, the classleadership@alumni.stevens.edu. When you email that, I'll tell you now, those emails will go to me, and I'd be happy to help you get any questions you may have answered. And finally, there's the SAA website for any general information or queries you may have. And we're almost at the end here, but I wanted to note that we do have some testimonials from individuals who have served in these roles either currently or in the past. And you'll see that from each of these individuals, there's nothing but support and constant help from the alumni office, who make it fun and effortless to be involved. The alumni office is wonderfully helpful. There's a minimal time commitment, and the class secretary role requires very little effort on our officers' parts. And I think one other thing I'll add here as a resource is that, again, we are working as a committee to make sure that our officers continue to get the support they need, and that there's more support provided and direction and clarity than what's been provided in the past. So with that said, we have a new subcommittee of this Class Leadership Committee. It's called the Development Subcommittee, and that organization is devoted to provide our class officers with training and webinars, job aids, and to act as a resource and sounding board for our class officers. So if you have concerns about, will you get the support that you need, I can assure you that we will be working as a committee and alongside the office to make sure that you have the support that you need in your role. And with that said, that's the conclusion of today's presentation. I just want to say thank you. And again, if you have any questions about the nominations process or about these roles, please email classleadership@alumni.stevens.edu. You should have seen in some emails that went out recently that we have a nomination form. It's currently live. I encourage you to use that to either nominate yourself or a classmate to serve in one of these positions. And I look forward to working with all of the interested and wonderful volunteers who we'll be working with over the coming 5 years. Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you all. Have a great day.